What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world, built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
Congressman Hamburg, I wanted to get you on to go over all of this, and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Alex. And, you know, I'm a big fan of Paul Craig Roberts. I try to read everything that I see that comes out on the net that he writes. And I have to say that I mostly share your perception. I don't think Obama is a psychopath, but I'd sure like to know what he was doing when he went to work for Business International Corporation after he left Columbia, because there's still something about Barack Obama. And, you know, I hate to be a naysayer, because so many of my friends and even colleagues and people I respect are riding this Obama wave. You know, and I don't want to be the skunk at the garden party, but at the same time, you know, you look at so many things that are going on. As you mentioned, the retreads from Clinton, the retreads from Bush, the way this economic crisis is being handled, which seems more like a heist than a stimulus. When you look at the continuation of the extraordinary rendition program, you look at the continuation of camps that, you know, Guantanamo closed it in a year. Well, you know, I think they ought to close it in 24 hours. I don't know why it takes a year. You know, it didn't take a year to open it. It shouldn't take a year to close it. But putting that aside, Bagram Air Force Base, you know, they're doing the same thing there. They're doing in Guantanamo. They're doing the same thing at U.S. military bases in Iraq, which seem to me to still be not enduring bases, as they used to call them, but permanent military installations as part of the American empire. And as I heard pointed out in the media last week, Barack Obama is now in charge of the biggest military machine in the history of the planet by far. He is now the one who has responsibility for the American empire. And he better start acting like he understands the undemocratic and profoundly negative aspect of that. And he doesn't really seem to have any understanding that he is now the ruler of an empire. He is now the ruler of a country that supplies more arms around the world than any other country on the face of the earth and in the history of the planet Earth. And you know, I think this is going to be a pretty limp-wristed administration if what we've seen so far is an indication of what's to come. You know, and I could go on. You know,
well, Congressman, I want you to, but let me throw in some points here. If you look at what Barack Obama's really doing, he's a slick pitchman, but a military-industrial complex owned by offshore banks that big isn't going to let him get in, isn't going to give him more money than any presidential candidate was ever given, 4 or 5 times, depending which numbers you look at, in Wall Street money than John McCain got. His administration filled with the very bankers that have engineered this collapse, and are now amassing more power, terrorizing people, saying, give us unlimited power or there'll be a depression. In hindsight, it's doing Obama a favor. And that's the approach I have in the Obama deception of going, look, forget this guy. Look at who's in control. That's who we need to blame. If we always get distracted, and I did this, you know, I pointed out Bush was a distraction. He was evil and horrible and should be brought to justice. But still, what about those pulling his strings? What about his handlers? Let's look past Barack Obama and George Bush and look at the real power structure, and it's the very same people now filling the ranks. So comment on that, A, and then B on the rendition, the kidnapping. It says, under executive orders issued by Obama recently, the CIA still has the authority to carry out what are known as renditions, secret abductions and transfers of prisoners to countries that cooperate with the United States. So it's a bait and switch. I mean, I've been reading what the legal scholars are saying, even liberals who are kind of halfway wanting to, well, they're going to take them to secret camps. So A, everything's being put on Obama, and I believe it's going to be a trap. They're going to destroy him in the end after he's served his usefulness politically. And then B, still allowing the abductions and taking them to secret client countries?
Well, it's way beyond creepy. And, when you hear the justification from it in the mainstream press led by, the New York Times and the Washington Post, it's, the justification is, well, we have to keep these tools in our national tool bag for fighting terrorism. Well, even people like Chris Matthews on MSNBC are starting to understand that you don't fight a war on terrorism. Terrorism is a tactic. It has nothing to do with an enemy. And when you try to put your finger on who the enemy is, you run into the fact that Al-Qaeda itself is a mythological organization, and to the extent there is an Al-Qaeda, it was created by the CIA. So, I mean, there are so many subterfuges within subterfuges within subterfuges, and you're right. The American people are being hoodwinked. They're being led around like sheep. And for what purpose? Well, it seems like the purpose is the same as it ever was, which is to rob the great majority of us in order to feed the rich. And that's what our economic system has been about for many, many decades, if not a couple of centuries.
Congressman,
until people understand that, I don't see anything really positive happening for the United States of America.
Except we're going to kind of, while we go down the road to hell, they're kind of giving us laughing gas to feel euphoric about Obama, and he says he cares about us, and he says he wants us to, work with him. Going back to an editorial you wrote, I guess about a year and a half ago, about Bush and how the whole apparatus of the police state and the FEMA camps and PDD 51 was all, and John Warner Defense Authorization Act, it was all aimed at us. Now we're seeing it in the news that they're arresting people for marijuana, they're arresting people for talking back on airplanes, they're charging them under the Patriot Act, and it's all continuing under Obama. And he's saying we're going to continue the war on terror, we're going to encircle Russia, we're going to 30,000 more troops to start with in Afghanistan. He's talking about a national draft, 18 to 24. I mean, George Bush could have never gotten away with this, well, it's
sort of like what Bill Clinton pulled when he came into office and was able to get all this legislation passed, and everybody said, geez, the Republicans never could have ended welfare. The Republicans never could have gotten NAFTA passed. The Republicans never could have got that crime bill through. So the Democrats, come in and actualize the Republicans, fondest dreams. But Obama, as you said, is a very slick character, and he, it's like having Will Smith as president, and people just can't help but love him, and the wife and the babies, and it's such a pretty picture, and, it's going to suck people along for a while, but, the piper will be paid. And if a year from now this economy is even more cratered than it is now, all of a sudden, it's going to be blaming on the black man. And it's going to, I can see some very ugly scenarios down the road. And I think the only way you combat it is to wake up America and get people to entertain the idea that they're being fooled.
Well, Congressman, that's finish up after the break. We're about to go to break, yeah. But I agree with you, and that's what when I talk to people like KRS-One or I talk to other well-known hip hop rap icons, that's what they're concerned about because they know what's going on. They know he's a front man, and they know in the end this is a trap, and that's why in a way I'm doing Barack Obama a favor. The public needs to know this guy, love him or hate him. You think he's the Messiah or you think he's the devil? You need to understand something. He is a front man. And 2 weeks into his administration, we know it's business as usual with just a little bit of pat-on-the-head rhetoric. So I want to get your take on that and talk about solutions and where you see this going. And then the FEMA camp legislation openly introduced, and they say these FEMA camps are basically going to take over local government. Stay with us. Former Congressman Dan Hamburg is our guest. We'll give you his website when we come back.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold for your IRA? The financial industry refuses to recognize the value of real hard assets for your retirement. The truth be told, gold and silver has outperformed paper investments like stocks, bonds, and CDs, yet no word about IRAs. Perhaps the financial institutions want to maintain control of your assets by keeping you in paper. If you'd like to take a look at gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low return on your paper investments. Call 800-686-2237. Make sure that you secure your future. Call 800-686-2237. That's 1-800-686-2237.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?